Hello and welcome to Fresh and Foraged. I'm your host, Carolyn Dugas, and today I am here to pump you up. If you've ever wondered, what's up with this foraging business? Why are all these hipsters flocking to that fig tree? Well, I'm not sure what's up with those hipsters, but I can say that foraging is fun, it's delicious, and it's wholesome. And unfortunately, there's a lot of fear around it. At least here in the US, there's a lot of fear around anything having to do with wild plants, mushrooms, or anything that didn't come from the grocery store. And that's just the food fears. So I'm here today to clear the fear and share with you 6 reasons why you, yes you, can become a forager. And in case you're wondering, well, why should I start foraging? Aren't foragers just weird people who wander around the woods covered in dirt, gnawing on raw turnips? No, that is only a small subset of foragers. A forager is anyone who collects a plant or mushroom that's growing of its own volition that was not planted by a human being. You can forage at your grandma's house. You can forage in the woods. You can even forage in the heart of a giant city. Just make sure that you're doing it sustainably. This is not a ramp camp. We're not trying to love these plants to death. We're focusing solely on mushrooms and abundant and invasive plants. Our goal here is to be sustainable foragers and to wrestle up some tasty grubs, to help Mama Earth, who is the one bestowing all of these wonderful gifts upon us, and to heal our connection to the natural world that we are a part of. My goal in this episode is to demonstrate how accessible wild food gathering can be, because it's something that's often shrouded in mystery and fear. So grab your dehumidifier, because we are about to demystify foraging. Number 1. Literally every human being on Earth is descended from wild food gatherers. Before people started settling down en masse and stoking the flames of the agricultural revolution, what do you think they ate? Microwave dinners? Pancakes? No, they were munching on wild plants. And not only were they munching, they were also harvesting, processing, and storing. Unfortunately, many of these rich traditions have been systematically destroyed in the name of colonialism and progress. But the good news is that you are directly descended from people with a strong and intimate connection with the earth. Even if they're a little cobwebby, those plant ID circuits are still floating around in your brain, waiting to be activated by some aptly timed YouTube video. So if you're like, who, me? I can't tell my kale from my kohlrabi. Just remember, every single human being alive today is descended from a whole bunch of foraging foremothers. Speaking of which, number 2, people were actively and enthusiastically foraging way before the invention of modern botany. Back in the day, everybody was happily foraging. Then along comes Carolyn rolling in on his roller skates of knowledge, and he's all like, let's rename everything in the name of progress. Also, let's make sure that only highly educated people can understand these names. And I hereby decree that common names are dumb. And we all know how silly that is. Chickweed's not going to stop being chickweed just because somebody started calling it Stellaria media. It's not going to uproot its entire life, move to the big city, and start putting on airs just because it's got a new name. None of its edibility is changing. It's still the same plant. So don't be intimidated by the use of Latin names and identification. Latin names are a tool, but they're not the ultimate expression of a plant. The ultimate expression of a plant is the plant itself. And I don't know about you, but I do not speak plant, so I am stuck having to use Latin names and common names to figure out what the heck's going on in the plant world. That being said, if you're going to learn plants solely from books and not from live people, you are going to need Latin names. Because that's how people from other cultures and backgrounds who speak different languages can know that they're talking about the same plant. Just keep in mind that people have been snacking on wild plants way before Linnaeus rolled up and started going crazy with the names, and they've been snacking on wild foods ever since. Reason number 3. Edible plants are everywhere. Everywhere! They're taking over the cities. They're all up in the countryside. They're hanging out as uninvited guests in your windowsill herb boxes. So hide your loved ones, because edible wild plants are taking over. They're coming for you. Now, many of these plants are known and reviled as weeds, But in reality, they've just got a little bit of a PR problem. Edible weeds are in fact nutrient-dense plants that grow with very little input from humanity, and in fact, often in spite of humanity's pointed attacks to try and destroy them. Just think of dandelions, cleavers, or chickweed. That being said, of course, the distribution of edible plants is going to vary across the globe. But I guarantee that there will be at least one, if not 30, edible plants within a quarter mile of you. I would say that access to plant knowledge is much more limiting these days than access to edible plants themselves. Reason number 4, very few wild plants are deadly poisonous. Going back to the fear point, when I started foraging, I thought there were deadly plants lurking around every corner, just waiting for me to let my guard down so they could jump into my gullet. Not so! Here in North America, there are fewer deadly plants than I have fingers. Now that's not to say that the rest of the plants are all yum yum eat 'em up good. There's a range to toxicity. And those range from the tasty, delightful, delectable edibles to things that'll, make you vomit a little bit or make you exude other unpleasant fluids, all the way to plants that will kill you dead. It's a range. So put in the hours and thoroughly learn which deadly poisonous plants live near you. That's probably the most important step to starting foraging, because if you know the deadly poisonous ones, then you will know how to avoid them and how to avoid harming yourself. I would say the idea of poisonous plants is equally, if not more important, than the idea of edible ones. Because we want to be happy and healthy foragers and not fountains of vomit. With that being said, the first time you try any new wild food, just try a little nibble. Because just like people can have strange and unusual allergic reactions to foods that other people would consider harmless, people can also have allergic reactions to wild foods, and you don't know until you try. A key point for this is if you already have a food allergy, look up which botanical families those foods are in, and then make sure you are extra careful when you are trying wild plants that come from those same families. For example, if you have an allergy to mangoes, be mindful, just try a little bit when you're tasting sumac berries because they're in the same plant family. So with a little bit of research and some mindfulness when you're trying new foods, you should be happily on your way to becoming a fully fledged forager. Number 5, when it comes to harvesting the vast majority of wild foods, the only tools you need are your hands. Many people get into foraging and think that they need a holster full of snippers, clippers, and shears before they even harvest their first green. I'm here to say, incorrect. Sure, those tools can be nice down the road, but to get started, you just need your hands, or maybe even your feet. You just need a few digits, some sharp thumbnails, and you should be good to go. So here's a list of things that you can harvest with your very own hands. Pretty much all greens and herbs, flowers, berries, wild yeast, many mushrooms, some twigs, and even seeds. That's a whole lot. Now you don't need any special tools. You don't need that specialized Japanese digging knife, that potato fork, or the special holster to hold them all. Those can be nice, but they're tools, and they will serve you down the road. To get started, you should be just fine with the hands you've got. Reason number 6, we are part of nature, not apart from it. Many modern cultures tell people that they are different, estranged, separate from nature, or even that they are above and nature is below. But this isn't so. These are just messages that we've been told that are ingrained in our minds, and that's a key on how to overcome them. They're just messages, they're not the truth. The truth is that we are all threads woven into the delicate tapestry of life. Threads woven alongside the frogs and the logs and the bugs. Now you may be thinking, you don't know me. I never go outside, and I have a kill-on-sight policy for any of this nature that gets into my house. Well, have you thought about the moon? The moon that is circling around us, dancing around the earth, pulling all the bits of water every which way. You've seen the tides. You know what the tides do. And the moon is making tides inside of you. You can't escape the moon. So even if you may not feel like it at first, If you still think you're separate from nature, you've just got to shake those cobwebs off of your plant brain. You know, plant brain. A little to the left of the lizard brain, right behind the occipital lobe. Just shake off your plant brain. It's there, and it's ready to be activated. So get ready to deepen or even reconstruct your connection to the natural world that we are so lucky to be a part of. So with that, I leave you all pumped up and nowhere to go. Now that you know that you can forage, you may be wondering, well, how do I start foraging? And don't worry, I've got you covered. I'll be doing a deep dive into the best ways to start foraging in an upcoming episode. So be sure to like and subscribe so that you can be notified when that comes out. Thanks for joining me, and happy foraging. You can do it!